So for the subtraction of the quantities, say we are doing an experiment. We are doing an experiment. We measure the initial temperature. Initial temperature, say it was 25 and plus minus 0.5 degrees. That is the uncertainty in the initial temperature. We measured the final temperature. The final temperature we measured, say this was 30 with an uncertainty of 0.5 degrees. If the question is what is the uncertainty in temperature change? So if you want to find the uncertainty in the temperature change, so subtraction of the quantities, if you want the temperature change is the greater minus smaller, here final minus initial. So what is the temperature change? The final temperature is 30 and the initial temperature is 25. So 30 minus 25, we get 5 degrees. That's the value of the temperature change. But what about the uncertainty? Even we are subtracting the values, the uncertainty always add. Even it's an addition of quantity or a subtraction of the quantities, the uncertainty will add. So what will the total uncertainty? 0.5 here and 0.5 here. So the total uncertainty will be 1. But how uncertainty is added even though we are subtracting the quantities? So we are finding the uncertainty in temperature change. So there will be a minimum value of the temperature change and there will be a maximum value. Uncertainty actually shows a variation from the mean, like the deviation from the mean value, like how much the mean value differ from the extremes. That is actually representing the uncertainty. So what will the maximum temperature, the minimum temperature change? The minimum temperature change, because the temperature change is calculated by T1 minus T2. We'll have a minimum value for delta T when the T2 is having a lower limit and T1 is having a higher limit. Like the value of T2 is smaller and the value of the T1 is higher, the change in temperature will be smaller. So what could be from this value 25 plus minus 0.5? So what could be the minimum value for T2 if we check? So the minimum value for T2 will be 24.5. Then what could be the maximum value of a T1? The maximum value of the T1 will be 25 point. So this one is 30 actually instead of 25. I use the, so when we take the minimum value for T2, 30 minus 0.5, so this will be 29.5, the minimum value. And what could be the maximum value for this one? Why we are finding the minimum and the maximum value? Because to know the uncertainty is a difference, the deviation from the mean value. So when we work out the deviation from the mean value, we get the uncertainty. So when we subtract this 29.5 minus 25.5, so what we get? We get 4 degrees. Now what could be the maximum value? The maximum value in the difference T1 and T2, when the T2 is having a greater and T2 is having a smaller value. What could be the maximum value for T2? The maximum value for T2 will be 30.5. And what could be the minimum value for T1? The minimum value for T1 will be 24.5. So when we take a difference, we get 6 degrees. So the mean value, the actual difference is like actual value is 5. So what is the variation from the actual value? The variation from the actual value, the maximum value can be +1 or the minimum value can be -1. That's why the uncertainty is plus minus 1. Means the variation of this value from the extreme values is plus minus 1, means it can be +1 or -1. So whenever we find the uncertainty, whenever we are finding the uncertainty of the subtraction of these quantities, the uncertainty always add. Is it clear? The second example. Anyone having a doubt or a question? Anyone having a doubt or a question till this point?
Yes, sir.
So whenever we are finding the uncertainty for the subtraction of the quantities, the uncertainty always add. Even it's addition of the quantity we add, for subtraction of the quantities we will also add.